Hello, Planeswalkers. Welcome to the Lotus Archives, the heart of arcane knowledge and the realm of Magic the Gathering. Guided by the sages at KLVD Studios, embark on a journey through ancient scrolls and powerful spells. From deck-building enchantments to legendary battlefield stories, we bring you the wisdom and wonder of Commander. Whether you're a master mage or just tapping into your powers, the mysteries of the multiverse are yours to discover. Let the magic begin.
Hello, Planeswalkers. Welcome back to the next episode of the Lotus Archives. This week, we have the new Commander updates. We are going to be talking about the new unbans from some of the cards that have been banned for as long as I've been playing. And they updated a little bit about the new Commander brackets. And let's get started. What did they unban?
Yeah, so we got quite a few unbannings. They got 5 cards unbanned here as of April 22nd. So, we might be a little bit late to the party here. We live lives, do other things. So, we let this simmer and stew for a few days to see what the community reaction was. And it seems like most people are pretty excited about this, and they seem pretty content. I know my main play group is, pretty stoked about it. They're all kind of on board with it and think it's interesting to see these new cards.
Yeah, I mean,
So
some of them I'm surprised took this long to get unbanned.
Right? I mean, it makes sense with how they're adjusting the formats and trying to do new changes. So I figured it was only a matter of time before some of these came off the list. But the first one we've got, so their main criteria, right, of what they wanted to get into, according to the documents here put out by Gavin Fairhay, which we both have here. So his main criteria, it looks like, was he wanted to do cards that have, fond memories associated with them, things that can contribute to positive play patterns and enjoyable decks, or some big, cool, splashy moments, and things that don't, cause negative patterns of gameplay or runaway games, like things that just steer off into a whole different pathway, which seems to be their main philosophy, it looks like, with these unbans and why they're keeping certain cards banned. So I know a lot of us were kind of expecting other cards to be unbanned, right? Like I was fully expecting, okay, Dockside's going to be unbanned, right? Dockside's going to be unbanned. They're probably going to unban Mana Vault. They're going to stick those in the Game Changer list and be totally fine. But none of that happened. Instead, first card we got here is Gifts Ungiven. This is one of my personal favorite cards. I love seeing this unbanned. For those that don't know, it is a 3 and a blue mana instant that says search your library for up to 4 cards with different names and reveal them. A target opponent chooses 2 of those cards, put the chosen cards into your graveyard and the rest into your hand, and shuffle your library.
Yeah, it's a fun card.
So,
It's listed below, everyone, right below Jack's head here. I remember when we first started playing, and I first started playing more, and I found out this card was banned. I was kind of like, is it really that powerful? But yes, it can be super powerful, but it's no more powerful than any of these other cards on the Game Changer list. And I think that's why Gavin and the committee here decided to unban this thing.
yeah, so, it's a beloved card of history. We played it a lot in Legacy. Coming from the Storm background, I played all the Storm decks. This was a huge piece in those decks, being able to just grab, 4 cards, and essentially whatever cards they grabbed, they were just all part of the combo. So it didn't matter what the opponent chose. If they put the 2, whatever cards they put in the graveyard, either way, it would be fine.
Yeah.
So the previous concern that looks like they had with this was the nature of it as a powerful tutor and the the combos it can enable, along with the time intensive casting process of it, because it is a 4 mana instant,
Yeah.
right? So under certain circumstances somebody could pass their turn, and just about any deck that has blue in it, you could just plop this out at any time. And under certain circumstances I can see it being a little iffy to try to pull off. But within their bracket system and the pregame conversations, right? If they want an infinite combo with it, then that's something that gets discussed early in the bracket system, and they're like, "Hey, this is a piece that gets me the combos. This is a powerful like these are all game changers too.
Yes.
By the way, these are all added to the game changer list, rightfully so. Um, but that's something that people should be discussing in their pregame conversations of like, yes, my deck is a 3 or 4. It has these combos in it. This is a way, it's got these powerful tutors. If you're playing online, you can send out an architect list and be like, yep, here's what I've got going on. This is it. And that can lead to some fun, game environments and things like that, which is what ultimately it seems like they're going for with this, is they want to cultivate a more positive and kind of just fun all-around gaming environment.
Yeah. So
Which I think can work with this.
yeah,
Politics-wise, it can be like a fun fact or fiction, like you said.
exactly. It's no better or worse than any of the other cards on the game changer list. And the next card I want to talk about that got unbanned, and it surprised me it took this long to be unbanned. Jack, you might be able to elaborate more on why it was originally banned, but especially once Turgrid came out in call time,
Mm-hmm.
Turgrid is just an effectively better card, at least in my opinion. But you got a card like Braids, Cabal Minion.
Oh, yeah.
She is, first of all, it's amazing freaking artwork.
Oh, we all love Braids.
It
Braids has been a fan
encompasses
favorite for so long.
the craziness.
Yeah.
And
We
Braids,
all love this girl. She's
oh my god, she's like, she just has the artist on this card, Eric. I can't read his last name, so apologies, but I can see
big ups to him though.
his first name is Eric.
Yep.
And the artwork, it just screams like craziness. And Braid's Cabal Minion is 2 and 2 black for a 2/2 human minion. And she reads, at the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices an artifact, creature, or land.
Yep.
I can see why that could have been oppressive back in the day. But looking at cards like Turgrid, that when they're sacrificed, they're stolen. I'm happy to see her unbanned. Jack, what are your thoughts on this?
I think it's pretty sweet. I know she was banned as a commander for quite a while, and I think they banned her in the 99 not too long after. But she's definitely got some really cool, she's very nostalgic, right? She's a very beloved character. We all love Braids, right? There's the blue version of her that's more of like a group hug style that lets people put things into play from their hands, whereas this one is like her alternate ego, where it's like, she completely flipped her lid and now she's like, well, now you gotta sacrifice those things,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool. I do agree how, with her as the commander, if you build her in, like, say, a bracket 4 or 5 tier and you get her out, because there's easily a way in 4 to 5 when you're playing like the strongest, most powerful card you can and you're trying to beat the meta, you can easily get her out turn 1
Oh,
if she's your commander.
without a doubt.
And from there, it's almost impossible for people to, really do anything after that. Like, say you're, fourth in the turn order, that's kind of where you'd want to be if you're playing a Braids deck in a competitive format. Because then you just plop her down, everyone got their turn going, and now on each of their upkeeps, we assume, okay, they've all played turn 1 lands, maybe they played an artifact or something. They've got to sacrifice one of those at the beginning of their upkeep, like before they, they can maybe pop something else down quickly, but it's just a very oppressive thing to play when it comes down that early. But however, they're saying we've got more targeted removal, we've got plenty of more ways to affect her. She's built in the lower tiers. It's an easier way to probably deal with her because they're not getting her out so fast. Because in lower tiers, they're not playing those crazy, rituals or 0 mana, 1 mana artifacts to get her up so quickly. So the quickest we could see her maybe in like a 3 bracket. We could probably see her by turn 2. Like a
Yeah,
Soul Ring turn 1. Like on the rare case, you get a turn 1 Soul Ring. You might get her down turn 2, but that still gives people time to Swords to Plowshares her or Bolt her or whatever, you know?
exactly. And I think bringing her back, it adds. It's going to bring another good commander back into the playing field. You're not just going to be seeing all the best model black decks, Turgid, yada 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 yada, all
Right.
these others. Now,
Dogma and the like.
yeah, now you got Braids you got to contend with. You got all these other cards. So it's to me, I'm like, you know what? This is good.
Yeah.
You're not. It's changes up the meta a little bit.
And you'll know what you're in for. Like, people know Braids. Most people in the Magic community have been playing EDH for a while. Even if you've only got like a year or so under your belt, you've probably heard of Braids, right? There's a lore, there's a mythos around her. And if you see her across the table, that should be enough for you to know, okay, you know what you're coming up against.
Exactly.
Right? We know what we're playing against when we see a Braids across the table. We know that if they pull that out, it's like, okay, I've got to pull out something that can be on par and can keep up with it. It might have a way to deal with sacrifice effects. Maybe you have an aristocrat deck. And it's like, oh, you want me to sacrifice creatures? Okay, sure. Here's my Taste of Karlov deck. Let's go.
Exactly.
Right?
I mean, at the end of the
She's
day,
really good. I'm glad to see her back.
yes. So, what did we got for the next card
The
that was
next,
unbanned?
so we've got another one here, a blue sorcery by the name of Sway of the Stars.
This
This is a really cool one.
This is interesting. Like looking at it, it's mean as hell. It's funny as
It's
hell.
pretty wild.
But go ahead and read the card.
So yeah, it's an 8 and 2 blue, so a 10 mana sorcery, where each player will shuffle his or her hand, graveyard, and permanents he or she owns into his or her library, draw 7 cards, and each player's life total becomes 7. So it's basically another 10 mana way to reset the game, kind of like Worldfire was,
Yep.
as they do, which was unbanned in Commander not too long ago. And I like these kind of, oh, excuse me, reset the board type of things if the game's going on for a while, right? I mean, it's 10 mana to get this off. So you're not going to play it till, quite a few turns in. And if you're all just kind of sitting around at the kitchen table having a fun random game with your 2s or 3s, I could see this being a fun thing to have in a 3 deck that's just, trying to faff around and have a good time with the boys or the group or whatever. So I don't think this is too bad.
No, I don't think so.
There's a lot of other. I mean, we've seen really powerful spells that have higher impacts than Sway of the Stars, like, for example, the Cyclonic Rift. Just the first one off the top of my head that can bounce all the stuff for 7 mana, which is 3 less, 3 less than this one. Quick little math in the brain. For less mana than that, you can send this and completely reset the board. It's less impactful, I think, than Cyclonic Rift, simply because Cyc Rift can usually then lead to just the game being over. Whereas this one will set everybody back to 7, everyone draws 7 new cards. You're kind of resetting the game into a more even playing field, essentially.
Yeah, it's a fun card. You're not gonna see it early in the game, which is why I think it was unbanned. And I always looked at it like, for fucking 10 mana, like in a higher power game. I mean, back when I first started playing, Commander was more the battleship cruiser style games.
Right.
And I know it was for you as well. So there was more of a chance to see these cards like Sway the Stars by turn 8, 9. Now, I mean, what's the average game that you've been playing recently? I know you get to play a lot more than I do.
Yeah, so the last thing my buddies and I did, we were doing spell table stuff. We went pretty far. It got to around turns like, we usually get turn 7, 8,
Yeah.
and if we're all ramping pretty consistently and stuff like that, we usually can have out pretty decent lands if we're all playing on par pretty well and decently. So it wouldn't be too far beyond the realm of believability that one of us would be able to play this card in a standard typical game
Like I
that we
feel like
play.
this card is more of okay, I don't have a way of winning right now, but I
But
want to
it's an out.
reset everything.
Yeah, like if you're kind of far behind, but you've just been drawing lands. Like I see this as a really good top deck, right? Like if you've
Yes.
just been drawing a bunch of lands and you've got some mana rocks and it's just been land after land and the board keeps getting wiped, but your other two other people are kind of far ahead, and you just top deck this thing, that's gonna be solid in my book. I'd slam that thing down and hopefully nobody has a counter spell.
Yeah. I mean, Christ, for me personally, as if I'm winning or if I'm like doing really well for myself and someone at the table is playing a freaking group hug or a pillow fort style deck and they're staltering out with their creatures and whatnot and they just bust out a sway of the stars.
Yep.
First of all, am I going to be a little annoyed? Hell yeah.
Probably, because
But
you're basically starting over a game that probably took 10 to 12 turns, and now you're,
but
which means it probably went on for about 2.5 hours almost, maybe 3 hours.
but at
So
that
everyone's been
point
sitting there
I'm just going to laugh cuz that's funny as hell.
just like, well, I guess we don't have anything else going on today, boys. Let's keep going.
But on the other
This is all
side,
night.
everyone's life total becomes 7.
Yeah,
So it's not like it's resetting commander damage and infect and all that other stuff.
right. Doesn't do that.
You're getting less life, and everyone's board state is just reset, which
Yeah,
could be an interesting way to shake up the game if you're able to pull it off.
yeah. And I think this will probably see. I mean, Worldfire was unbanned not that long ago, and that saw very little play, simply because it exiles everything
Yeah.
and then makes everybody's life total 1.
Yeah.
So that to me is a far, I think the right word, crueler and
Yes.
kind of rude way to go about things. Just exiling everything. At least with this one, yeah, it's one more mana because Wildfire is 9, and this one is just 1. So it's one extra mana to actually reshuffle everything, set their life total to 7, and then give everybody a nice fresh clutch, like nice fresh set of hand there. I think it'll be played more than Worldfire simply because I've never seen a Worldfire,
No.
honestly.
Neither
Like
have
I've
I.
ever since it was unbanned, we never saw it. So this is definitely a niche player base that likes cards like these. So
I don't think
which
you're gonna see this
I like.
in every deck that's blue.
No.
You're not
You
gonna.
definitely won't see it in like 1, 2, or you might see it in 3, maybe 4. If it's a certain type of style you're going for, you might see it in them. But it fills a niche role.
I mean, I think you'll see it more in 3 and 4 than you will in the cEDH bracket.
Yeah, you won't see this in cEDH. I don't think so. It doesn't serve a purpose in cEDH.
No. But moving on,
What's our next one?
our next card is a card that was always shocked as well that it was banned. Just because it's such, I don't want to say it's difficult to pull off, but you need a lot going. And
Yeah.
that is going to be Coalition Victory for 3 in Wooburg, sorcery. You win the game if you control land of each basic land type and a creature of each color. Like it's a win con, but
Yep.
it's only valid in 5-color decks, and you need a monocolor of each creature. Because I believe dual color creatures don't count for this. Am I correct on that?
You would need something that has all 5 colors.
Yeah.
So if it's got the Scarecrow commander, he would count. He's 5 colors, so he would work.
Oh,
Yep.
really?
Yep, he's considered a 5 color. He's got all 5 colors in him.
Even though
So that would work.
and a creature of each color. So
Yep.
okay,
So he's got each color mana pip in his casting cost
that
because you can
makes
cast it
this
for one of those. So yeah,
this card a
this card
lot
is
better than I thought it was.
it's
I thought you needed a single like monocolor creature of each type for it.
no, you can just so the main issue discussion of this one was that if you have a 5 color commander like Sliver, Overlord or whatever, you could essentially just play this and win the game.
Dragon.
Yeah,
Uh,
Ur-Dragon,
like you said,
uh,
I had my Scarecrow deck for a
Rose.
while.
Yeah, Scarecrow works. Any 5 color commander or any 5 color creature could work. So in a deck that has that, you're likely playing, lands that have all the basic land types. Even the dual lands can work. So if you've got dual lands that have each basic land type on them, this would work with that. You don't need to actually have,
Shit.
you know, or because it says a land of each basic land type. So the biggest key thing there is that it doesn't say you need to have a basic land of each type. You just need a land of the basic land type. So the wording is very particular on a card like this.
That I misread the wording, and this card is a lot better than I thought, but
Yep.
still, it's a lot of mana.
It is. It's 8 mana to potentially try to win the game. It can be easily interacted with. If you've just got like say I try to cast this and I've got my Silver Overlord out, if they just kill my Overlord and he's the only 5 color creature I've got in play, that's just a fizzled spell. It's gone. Which with the amount of removal we see these days and interactions, you know, it's not, unfeasible. Like it's very feasible to see this card be played and then easily interacted with. Because that's 8 mana to essentially almost do nothing.
Yeah, especially if it fizzles out.
Yep.
Like, knowing this information, I might be rebuilding my Reaper King. Because he's the only 5 color deck that I've really ever, like, oh shit, this is a lot of fun to play. But,
Yep.
alright.
It is cool to note that they also added here at the end. So, like, for those of us that like to engage with the commander brackets, this is kind of in that time frame of when they would expect the sort of I win combo to fall. Typically within like brackets 3 and well probably within bracket 3, possibly 2. Actually, 2 doesn't have any infinite combos. So within bracket 3, right? Most infinite combos they're expecting would be the drop by for ramping decently with things like Soul Ring, the
Yep.
Signets, and Talismans or whatever. You can reasonably, on average, get this down maybe turn 6.
Yeah.
If you've pulled it off, I could see turn 6, but if you're making your land drops and you've got decent artifact ramp, I could see turn 6 to maybe on the earliest. Like the earliest I could see this is turn 6. Turn 5 if you got the God Hand.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what they're expecting. Most games they're expecting in bracket 3 are to go between maybe 12 turns at the latest. Probably is what it seems their expectation is for those types of games, which this kind of fits in line with.
Yeah. I feel like this is going to. It's one of those pieces that's going to end the games, obviously.
Yeah.
But I feel like they put this back in there because it does take a lot to pull off.
There's a lot of setup.
Like,
That's the biggest thing with this. It's a lot of setup.
but all right, what is the next or
All right.
last card that was
The
unbanned?
last one. This is one that's kind of cool. I'm quite a fan of it. I like its idea. I like what it's going for. It is Panoptic Mirror.
What does it
So it's a
do?
5 mana artifact that has imprint X. So X and tap, you may remove an instant or sorcery card with converted mana cost X in your hand from the game. And then it has at the beginning of your upkeep, you can copy an imprinted instant or sorcery card and play that, and play the copy without paying its mana cost. Yep. So you have to initially you got to pay the mana cost for it, right? So you got to pay the scene, the mana value to tap the artifact, remove, the instant or sorcery from your hand to get it set up to be used the next following turn. Which this is a pretty cool card. I'm quite a big fan of it. I think it's a really sweet artifact. It's got a lot of cool utility. You can do a lot of unique, playing a cool spell every turn is quite a interesting, you know, quite a cool way to play the game, I think. I think it adds a lot.
Yeah, it's adds some interesting mechanics to that, especially with the imprint ability. But so these cards were all unbanned. They were added to the game changer list.
Rightfully so.
What we finished off the new cards that were unbanned that we can start playing with again. But
I'm excited to use these. I'm
yeah,
definitely going to be getting my hands on. Gifts Ungiven is one I'm definitely getting my hands on. Probably Panoptic Mirror, maybe. I like its flavor. I like what it goes for. I likely won't use it to take extra turns though, because that's its biggest.
Yeah.
One of its big downsides that they were concerned about was people taking extra turn after extra turn after extra turn, which I'm not gonna bash those who do infinite turns as a win con, because it is a feasible way to do things, but I'd like to see, like, I'm gonna make you play it out to see where you actually kill the board.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you're just gonna sit there and take turn after turn after turn with something, that you've imprinted, just like a time warp or something on this thing, and if we let it, but that's to say we had to let it get to your next turn with this thing on the board still. So that's 3 people that get to go, and if none of them have a way of killing that thing, then we're in trouble.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I know
taking all these extra turns, where is your win? How
okay.
you gonna?
Yeah. You better have a win con if you're doing something like that.
Yeah, because otherwise we're just gonna sit there and be like, I'm just gonna sit here and wait, bro. Like, I hope you got a way to kill me, because otherwise we're just gonna sit here for a really long time.
I mean, I know for me personally, I'm gonna pick up a coalition victory.
Yep.
I want to, knowing that, I'd like to rebuild my Reaper King deck. I had a lot of fun with that deck, especially with the new bracket system and the emergence of formats like Spell Table. I could build up my Reaper King deck again, and I originally debuilt it because the playgroup I was playing with at the time, they hated playing against it because it was mean.
Well, rightfully so. You're probably blowing a bunch of shit up.
No. Why would I do that? Why would I do that with cards like Conjurer's Closet and just putting a bunch of Reaper Kings on the field? No, I wouldn't do that. But the other one I'm seriously considering picking up, especially if her price stays cheap, is the new Braids. Or not new, but
the finally unbanned Braids.
Yeah. I could easily put her into my Turgid deck. But with that, we have some new game changers that were added.
Yes, the brackets have finally gotten their stuff going here.
So, what do we got for mono white? I'll have you start it off.
Let's see. So, mono white, they finally put in humility, which that should have been a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Humility finally got added to, this game changer list here, being a 2/2 white that makes all creatures lose their abilities and become power and toughness 1/1. If that doesn't just completely flip the game on its head, I don't know what will.
Yeah, that's a mean card, and you're probably not going to be seeing that in bracket 3 that often, just because it is a $60 card. You'll probably
the price of these is definitely something to consider as well.
Yeah.
When it comes to like trying to do budget builds and things like that, because you definitely can do budget decks that can fit into these brackets. I'm not sure about budget bracket 4 as
I don't think we're going to see a budget bracket 4. Like a true budget.
Yeah, so my bracket 4 decks that I have, between things like Slicer, with these game changers, my Liliana deck is now a bracket 4.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. But between those, like Slicer, Elves, the stuff I have for that, They're all sitting pretty at around $300 to $500, give or take.
Yeah.
So you're gonna drop a pretty penny to build a true good bracket for, let alone five. Like five, you're gonna go into the $1,000 range,
Oh, easily.
100%.
Easily. So the next card that was added from the white is Teferi's Protection. Everybody
Took a
should
while.
know this card.
Yep.
I'm a little hit or miss on this one, even being a game changer, but I can see its value. Teferi's Protection is a 2 in a white for an instant, reading until your next turn. Your life total can't change, and you gain protection from everything. All permanents you control phase out. Exile Teferi's Protection. This can be used for a lot of mean shit. Jack, I'm sure you've seen a lot more of this card than I have.
Yeah, so my playgroup we've definitely used. I've seen people use it. I've never owned one. I would love to own one. Sadly, I do not. Um, I have seen them pull this out of nowhere to save their asses from being eliminated, which honestly I think is the biggest argument for it being a game changer. As you know, you can be top dog, right? You can be full in the lead, thinking you've got game against somebody. Then all of a sudden, they tap a white and a soul ring, or they tap some mana, and they just drop this out of nowhere, and then they just can proceed to win the game on their next turn. You know, protecting themselves. A huge defensive spell like this, being what I would call the pinnacle of defensive spells that can completely protect you on par with like Psych Rift, right? Like it saves you from a lot of things happening. Like if you Psych Rift on somebody's turn as they're trying to kill you, you're completely saved. And then it gives you the time you need to formulate your plan, make a huge comeback, and then completely alter the course of the game from where it was.
Yeah, it's a
I'm fully on board with this being a game changer. I think it should have been on here day one.
yeah.
I don't know how they missed putting this out there. As soon as they were making this bracket, that should have been, that should have been card number one.
Yeah. So now we're on to the blue cards. The first one on there is going to be Consecrated Sphinx. For 4 and 2 blue, it is a 4/6 Sphinx with flying, and it reads: whenever an opponent draws a card, you may draw 2 cards. Card draw advantage.
We love it. This is a kill on sight, folks. You see
Yeah.
this thing hit the board, you need to kill it. Do not let it sit around. You will regret it.
I feel like Consecrated Sphinx, for those that have been playing for a long time, meaning more than a year or so, with a lot of games under their belt, they realize how good this card is.
Yeah.
But those newer players, they're going to see a 6-drop 4/6 with flying that doesn't like exile their stuff or kill their stuff on site. They might overlook this card.
Mm-hmm.
But this
But
card
don't.
is
It
disgusting.
needs to die.
Card draw is
Anyone who's
king.
seen, anyone who watches Command Zone, who has seen Josh Lee Kwai play this, you know
Yeah.
what this card can do. Kill it. Don't let it live. I don't care what you have to do. Just get rid of it. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's too good.
I'm glad it's a game changer.
It 100% should be.
All right. What do we got for the next one?
Next one is one that I'm also very fond of. This is another really cool Storm card that I've played a bunch in the past, and I'm actually kind of glad to see it here because of how strong of a tutor it is. It is called Intuition. It is a 2 and a blue instant. This is an older card. This is an old card from Tempest.
Yep.
That I'm gonna really date myself here and sound really old for it, but you search your library for any 3 cards, you reveal them to an opponent, and then he or she chooses one, and you put the chosen card into your hand and the rest into your graveyard, and then you shuffle up your deck. So it's really cool to be able to kind of just grab the cards you want. It's very much like a Gifts Ungiven,
Yep.
in a sense. It's like a smaller Gifts Ungiven. which completely makes sense for why they would put it here and why they would add it, excuse me, to the game changer list. It's not as good in Commander as it has been in like a four of format like Legacy or Modern. Actually, I don't believe it's legal in Modern, but in a format like Legacy, it's extremely powerful being able to grab three of the same card and just be like, okay, which of the three of these, same cards, like which of these three brainstorms are you gonna give me?
Yeah.
You know? So like in a format like that, it's really cool, but it's also good here in a sense that, well, it is an instant, so being an instant automatically makes it incredibly powerful. And it can be a one card combo in the right deck. There are plenty of, things out there. Like, for example, there was like an old Doomsday deck of mine that I played way back in the day. And it was based on a Legacy deck, of course. And I promise at some point I'll probably shut up about Legacy, but that's just, where I come from. So my brain is still. I'm trying to dewire my brain from that format. It's taken me almost 10 years. I'm getting there, I promise. Um, but in a Doomsday combo deck, it's very technical, and you can pull it off with intuition. But I'm going to promise my friends and other people right now, I'm not going to build that deck again. That shit hurt my brain. I don't want to go down that road again. That hurt.
Yeah.
But it's very deserving of its game changer status. Just the fact that it can pop off on someone's end step and set you up perfectly on your next turn. Yeah, 100%. Big W for them. It's absolutely a game changer, for sure.
And it's a very expensive one as well.
Yeah.
Sitting around $230.
For a very good reason.
Yeah, you're probably not going to see it too often.
No, it's never been reprinted.
No,
so.
And I don't think it ever will.
No.
But the next one is a newer card. That's going to be Narset, Parter of Veils. A 1 and 2 blue planeswalker that reads, each opponent can't draw more than one card each turn. She only has a -2 ability. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a non-creature, non-land card from among them and put them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And she starts with 5 loyalty. This is good.
Yeah. She's obnoxious.
Yeah.
To say the least.
It's very good. I believe, was this from, this was from one of the sets where they did they put a shit ton of planeswalkers in it, right?
Yeah, the fight against Nicol Bolas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were getting planeswalkers at uncommon, rare, and mythic. So there was a shit ton of them, and I don't think they did too much playtesting with this card because this is as an uncommon.
So it does the same thing with like Leovold, right? I know there was at one point we talked about Leovold for a little bit, where it's the oppressiveness of punishing card draw, right? So we can actually kind of compare this one to 2 other cards that were added in here to kind of get them out of the way quick too, with Orcish Bowmasters and Notion Thief. Right, so these kind of all 3 tied together in how they punish additional card draw. Right, like you got Narset just stopping it completely, Bowmasters deals damage, and Notion Thief is just like, well, how about you don't draw cards, but I'll draw more cards.
Yeah.
Which is just punishing as hell. I think Bowmasters and Notion Thief are a little bit worse than Narset, because like, Narset's just like, no, you just don't get to draw. But the other ones either will hurt your opponent or will benefit you even further, which I think is far worse than just saying to your opponent, no, you don't get to draw new cards when I wheel. Which that's the biggest thing, is comboing these with wheel spells is the most brutal thing somebody can do. And I've seen them played in, and all 3 of these can be put in a Nekusar deck, which is just disgusting as hell.
Mm-hmm.
So if you see these in a Necrosar deck, guess what? That's a 3 automatically. I don't care. I don't care what you try to tell me about a Necrosar deck. It's going to be a 3 automatically.
Yeah, we've talked about this before in the episode where we talked about commanders that we hate playing against.
Yeah.
Nekuzar is just mean.
Yeah. 100%. So they can be frustrating to play against, and I'm pretty sure that seems to be their main reason for putting them on this list, is just the frustrating and kind of negative impact they can have on the board, which makes sense, right? Like I would say that's a good reason for putting them on here for sure.
Yeah, I don't think they're necessarily putting like the best cards in the format on this. It's more of the what cards make people be like, what cards make people groan. Kind of like what we were talking about before. Obviously, some of these are the best cards in the format, but I think
so they're kind of combining that, right? They're looking at all these different, all the different factors that can go into this, right? With like it being super powerful and having a big impact, but then also what sort of environment does it create for the table itself, right? Like what kind of impact will it have on the game as a whole? Which for the most part, most of these have, they're all pretty substantial.
All right. So that's the blue cards. Now we got the black. What is the first black one?
Oh, this is my favorite. This is probably one of my favorite cards to have ever been printed and to ever exist. It's good old Necropotence.
Oh boy.
I love this card. So it's 3 black, right? Just 3 straight black for an enchantment. You skip your draw step. And then whenever you discard a card, exile that card from your graveyard. Now already people are probably like, well, what's so great about that? I'm not drawing cards, and if I discard, I exile. Well, here's the kicker. You pay 1 life, exile the top card of your library face down, and then you put that card into your hand at the beginning of your end step.
Yep.
So, your life is now a resource. You can draw as many cards as you want for your 40-point life total. And this was actually a card that I used in a recent game that pretty much won me the game, honestly. So the ideal way to play this is to essentially keep yourself with a full clutch of 7 cards, right? So throughout the entire game I played this, it was just a 3-man pod with, my buds, David and Brandon. And it was overall a good game. So we're going through the motions, and I'm just keeping a full clutch with this. So every few turns, I'm like paying 3 life, 2 life, maybe 4 life. Getting down. And that's the biggest benefit to this, is that it just keeps you full of resources, right? So you never run out of gas with a card like this. So long as you have enough life to keep paying into it, you'll never have an issue of not drawing cards. Even though you skip your draw step, it's still fine. And it's instant speeds too, so you can really screw somebody up if they're trying to attack you for game. You just be like, nah, I'm gonna kill myself, thanks.
Yeah.
I'm gonna deny you that. Nobody makes me bleed my own blood, type of deal. So it's a really cool, fun card. But you can take yourself out with it, so it is important to be smart with how you use it. Is kind of its biggest thing. Being able to turn your life total into cards is very powerful. And a lot of people have been apparently pestering Gavin and the community and the committee here to put this on there, which I would say rightfully so. That had a pretty big impact on the last game I played. So
yeah, it
helped me draw into the win I needed.
Yeah, it's a very good fucking card.
Yeah.
So
it can make your opponents kind of, be a little iffy about you too, because you put yourself to such a low life total. Like I think I was at like 5 or 6 life when I won that game, and it's like, oh, he's so low, we can probably just take him out. Like, it's Stiff Breeze, we'll knock him over. So, we can kill him whenever. He's just gonna kill himself. It's fine. Let me take out this other guy who's, increased his board state and done a lot more and is at a higher life total. and then you just kind of sit back with your full clutch of hands, and you got a combo waiting to pop off, and they don't have no idea.
Exactly.
It's so good.
So the next card we got is one of those cards that when it first came out, it was immediately a gold mine if you drew it from a pack. And
Yeah.
to this day, it is still one of the better mono black cards. That is going to be Orcish Bowmasters.
Yeah.
For 1 and a black, a 1/1 Orc Archer. Oh, it's just a small little thing. But no.
Yeah. Okay.
The thing has flash, and it reads, when Orcish Bowmasters enters the battlefield, and whenever an opponent draws a card, except the first one they draw in each of their turns, Bowmasters deals 1 damage to any target, then amass Orcs 1.
Nobody cares about that last part. That last part don't matter.
No. This is just fucking with people's card draws.
Yeah, it's right on side Narset and Ocean Thief.
Yeah.
It just pairs with those perfectly to just, again, punish that card draw. It's brutal.
We won't go too much into why it's so bad and all that. I don't personally.
It should have been on here.
Yeah.
Should have been on here ages ago.
Yeah. But so, red. What do we got for red?
This is an interesting one. They put Deflecting SWAT onto the Game Changer list here.
I was kind of surprised to see this one. But I can see why it's good.
Yeah, so it does do... So their main thing is that it's very similar to a free counterspell, like the... basically like Force of Will, essentially, is like a free counterspell. Things like, Force of Negation as well is pretty on par with that, which I'm surprised Force of Negation isn't on here, because that's also a free counterspell. But things like Force of Will, right, being like that's the most clear and obvious free counter spell that exists. And Deflecting Plus. So if you control your commander, you can cast the spell for free. And you can choose new targets for target spell or ability. And that's kind of the coolest thing about it, is that you can choose new targets for a spell or an ability. That, I think, is probably the most unique thing about it, is being able to alter the ability of something that's targeting your card.
Yeah.
For essentially free. Like, if you have someone's ability or kill spell or something targeting your commander, you can play this for free and just be like, no, I'm not. You're not doing that to my guy. Not happening. Yeah. And instead swap it over to affect them in a negative way. So on top of saving your creature, you can also then screw over somebody else's. So it does a little bit more than what just a free counterspell does, which I could see, why it would deserve a spot here, given that.
Yeah, it's a good card, especially the whole thing. If you control your commanders, you can cast this spell without paying its mana cost.
Absolutely.
That's
definitely something I still need to get my hands on.
Yeah, it was only printed in one precon a while back. I want to say it was the Ikoria precons, maybe.
Yeah, the one that had all the free spells.
Yeah. But so the next card is a card by the name of Gamble. For a single red, it's a sorcery. Search your library for a card, put it into your hand, then discard a card at random, then shuffle your deck. Okay. It's a tutor. But you may lose that card you just tutored for.
It's a risky tutor.
Yeah, but it's still a good card. It's a single mana tutor. That's why it's on here.
Being a 1-mana tutor is very good, especially for like a mono red deck that has relatively few means to tutor a card. The risk is kind of there for like a red deck in that it's impulsive, right?
Yes.
I like how it fits in the nature of what red is all about. So I've always found it a really cool, fun card to run.
Yeah, it's risky,
and it definitely fits here.
All right.
That's good.
So The color that had the most, which definitely surprised me, or it didn't surprise me. It surprised me when they originally came out, and there was only a couple of green cards on there.
Mm-hmm.
But we got green here. And what's that first green card, Jack?
Well, so we got another 1-mana tutor in crop rotation. Which this is a pretty potent one. So it's just 1-mana instant, lets you sack a land, and then go grab whatever other land you want and put it directly into play. Not put into play tapped, not any other things, just sacrifice whatever land you want in addition to, paying the one for it and grab whatever you need.
Yeah.
Which it's
I
very potent because I can see the best way to use this, or the most optimal way to use this that I can think of, is you've got some kind of big scary thing attacking you that may not have the most protection on it, right? Like say it has no hexproof or shroud or ward or whatever. Big scary thing swinging at you for game. You tap a forest, play the crop rotation, sack the forest, plop down a Maze of Ith. Save yourself from getting killed.
I mean, you could do that. I see this being played a lot in cEDH coming up here. I mean, especially for those levels that have access to the Gaia's Cradles and cards like that.
Yep.
We'll see it a lot.
Yeah, playing big. Yeah, big, huge things there, which that's probably why they finally put it in the Game Changer list, because they likely were seeing it played in 4 and 5 tier, brackets, and they saw it being used to grab things like Gaia's Cradle and, the Crypts or whatever that could tap for a crap ton of black mana and things like that. And like the Sarah Vault, whatever, that taps for enchantments. Getting those types of cards, getting those types of huge lands really makes sense for why this is here. Not to mention Lotus Fields and Field of the Dead and crazy dumb shit like that.
Yeah. So, the next one we got is Food Chain. Food Chain is...
It took them long enough.
Yeah, right. Food Chain is going to be 2 in the green for an enchantment, and it reads, exile a creature you control, add X mana of any one color, where X is 1 plus the exiled creature's mana value. Spend this mana only to cast creature spells. I don't think we have to go too deep into this, why this is good. I'm surprised it took it this long to get onto the Game Changer list.
It's very abusable. It's always, usually if not always played in a rather broken and not particularly fair way. It fuels a shit ton of infinite combos. And, what's good is that, they're kept out of, like Gavin said in this article, right? They're kept out of brackets 1 and 2. You might see it in 3 in a 2-card combo for the late game, possibly. But you'll see it just all over the place in 4 and 5.
Yeah.
Like, this card will be everywhere. The infinite combos that it can play they come straight out of Legacy, right? Like, people played this thing nonstop. And, huge meta formats. It's very powerful. So in big competitive spheres, you're going to see this a lot.
Yeah, so what's that next green card we got?
A super sweet one, a name of Natural Order. I love this one. This one is super sweet.
Yeah, this is a fun
4
one.
and 2 for sorcery. You have to sacrifice a creature in addition to, cast it. For its other cost, you got to pay by sacking a creature. And then you search your library for a green creature and you put it into play. This is probably the best way that an elf deck will ever get out Craterhoof.
Yeah.
That's one of the main places you'll see this, is in like a Marwyn or an Azuri elf deck that'll just sacrifice one of their random little mana dorks, and then 2 seconds later, bam, here's a hoofy. It's how I win most of those games. It's very powerful. It cheats out mana, instant efficient tutor, can win you the game on the spot. It's potent as hell.
All right. So, next one we got Seedborn Muse. Another one that I am shocked that it took this long to get on there. For
Yeah,
three,
bit of controversy and issues with this one.
yeah, for 3 and 2 green, it's a 2/4 spirit, and it reads untap all permanents you control during each other player's untap step. Yeah, I don't think we need to go into this one why this is good,
It's very good.
but we'll probably be seeing. You'll see this a lot in the higher tier stuff. Um, so Jack, what is that controversy with Seedborn Muse?
Well, so, Gavin states out here in this article, right, that is 100% worth noting that Seedborn Muse was printed in the Abzan deck, right? I mean, it's a 2/4, so in a toughness matters Abzan deck like that, it makes sense that you'd have a pretty powerful, decent card that synergizes well with it, and that can untap, your big heavy blockers and big powerful dudes like that. So it made sense to add this card into it. I'm not all shocked that they put this card in there. It hadn't been considered as a game changer prior to the release of that deck. However, they always said that bracket 2 was the typical precon, which bracket 2, as we all know, don't contain any game changers.
Yeah.
So everyone was kind of like, well, WTF here, Watsy, what the heck? Y'all said there aren't any game changers in precons, and core bracket 2 was supposed to be on par with precons, but here we are with a game changer in it, and what's going on? So as he states here, right? So he goes on that core bracket 2 is supposed to be on the level of an average modern day pre-constructed commander deck. However, he's also going on that there can't be some variance, right? Like, it doesn't mean there can't be some kind of variance there, and that they're going to be updating the terminology to pull away from a precon as a benchmark, which they have done, right? Like, if we, after we get through these last few cards, we can go in and, they did switch up the terminology quite a bit to steer clear of saying that, yeah, a precon is the base, right? That doesn't seem to be the foundation they're going with anymore. It seems like they're trying to steer away from saying that everything starts at the precon level.
Yeah, I mean, we've had this discussion prior. We won't get too much into it in this episode, but it seems like every set that releases precon decks, there's always at least one that's either way above all the others in terms of power or way below. Mm-hmm. So going and saying, oh, bracket 2, it's precon level. Well, a deck like the Edgar precon or the Ur-Dragon precon are a lot better than some of the other precons. So it's hard to say precons are all the same, because they're not. We know this. Right. But with that, our next mono green game changer is Worldly Tutor. It's a mono green for an instant. Search your library for a creature card, reveal it, then shuffle and put that creature on top. It's a good single drop tutor. Not much more we can say about it. Very good. It should have been on here from the get-go.
Yeah, it should have just been auto-included with every other, tutor that was on here. If other tutors are being put on here, then it should have been on there as well.
Yeah. So, now we're on to the multicolored. What is the first one in the multicolor?
First one we got here is Aura Shards.
This is a fun card.
I love Aura Shards.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan
and
of this
I also kind of hate it. So Aura Shards is a 1 green and a white for an enchantment that whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may destroy artifact or enchantment. So it's very good in that we want to have ways to address powerful artifacts and enchantments, right? We need to have ways to affect them, remove them, something like that. The trick with this one is that it's permanent,
Uh-huh.
right? This is a permanent, consistent way to constantly destroy mana rocks and even some, odd out enchantments in some way, shape, or form. Being that it's a permanent effect and that doesn't discriminate between non-token creature and just a regular creature, I think is what makes this so potent in that it's a Selesnya card.
Yes.
And we all know that Selesnya loves making tokens.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with
So,
you. When I first started playing, and when I started playing heavily in the commander format, that's right along the time of the Eminence commanders. When I really got into it playing every weekend, I had the Arabo precon. This was one of the first cards I put in there to upgrade it.
as well, you should have.
And
Making all those kitty cats, gotta blow up those things.
it did freaking damage. And
This this can completely shut down an enchantment deck,
oh yeah,
right? Like it can shut down an enchantment deck, an artifact deck. I think particularly artifact decks would have a hard time with this if they don't counter it
yeah,
before it hits the board, right? Because most artifact decks are in blue, and a lot of them will have ways to counter spells, which is helpful for them. If they don't have that, they're kind of SOL because you can, if they don't have a form of protection on the board to keep their artifacts from being destroyed, you're kind of screwed at that point. Like, I mean, there's the Harmonic Sliver that does essentially the same thing as this, just in creature sliver form.
yeah,
And I've played that against a buddy of mine who has a full enchantment deck, and it's just completely hosed him. Like, without even my full intention being to completely annihilate his deck, it just does. Right? Like, whether your intention is to completely hose the deck or not, the nature of the card is to do that. Right? Like, that is just what this card will do. So, it's something to definitely be mindful of and why it 100% should be on here.
yeah. So the next one we got is Notion Thief for 2 in
Yeah, right
Demir.
on par with those other
Yep,
ones.
2 in Demir, 3/1 with Flash. If an opponent would draw a card, except the first one they draw in each of their draw steps, instead, that player skips their draw and you draw a card. Same deal as some of the other ones. Messes with draw steps, messes with drawing cards. We won't get too deep into it. It's a good card. So, there was 2 lands that were put onto the game changer list. And I will start this off first because you'll probably be able to talk about the second one a little bit better than I will.
Yeah, I got you.
But
Yeah.
the first one is Field of the Dead. And
That was shocker.
it reads Field of the Dead enters the battlefield tapped. Add 1 colorless. Okay, yeah, whatever. It's a colorless land. Well, no. Whenever Field of the Dead or another land enters the battlefield under your control, if you control 7 or more lands with different names, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token.
Yep.
Oh boy. Yeah, this is good.
Pretty good. It's pretty strong. Pretty potent.
It's very good.
Pretty, yeah, this can just run off, the rails with fetched lands and different types of land drops, getting additional land drops, running all kinds of different things. Even just like the cheap fetch lands can really just run away with this. And you can have an army of blockers for days. Not to mention just having a crap ton of potential attackers too.
Yeah.
All from just one land.
Oh, so much fun. But,
Yeah.
all right, so
Like most decks, right? Like if you're looking at bracket 3, right? How much? There's no mass land denial
no,
in bracket 3, right? So if you're plopping this into a 3 deck as one of your game changers that you can have in bracket 3, the most people aren't going to be playing ways to get around it.
no.
So
So
same as this next one.
there's this next one. I'll be shocked if you ever see this, the
It's
actual card.
expensive.
The only way I see this is if your playgroup is okay with proxies.
Yeah.
The
Or
com
you've been playing for a long time and got it from a collection of some other things.
Yeah, but what is this
This
card?
is Mishra's Workshop. Simply states tap to add 3 colorless mana to your mana pool. Mana may only be used to cast artifacts.
That's fucking insane.
Yeah, so it's extremely difficult to acquire. So, very likely not going to be seeing a lot of play in the lower tiers just because the lower tiers they tend to be budget simply in the sense that well for one anyway, right? Bracket 1 is typically meant to be a theme deck, right? And this gets into like their new philosophy of things, right? Like bracket 1 is supposed to be themed around a cool little thing. It's not really valuing winning. So you're not going to see a crazy expensive card like this in a one deck,
No.
in a one tier. It's just not going to fit. It'll immediately jump you up to at least a 4, if not a 3. And 2 being more of like, let me see, what did they quickly change the wording on 3? Because I do want to touch on this real quick. Because they're getting away from that. So these are decks that are focused on, you know, every card choice may not be the highest in power and comparable to an average precon. The wins are telegraphed and incremental, right? So it's going to be decks that you can play against a precon with them, but the decks are focused. So it's like you have a clear line of sight. You have, you know, what you want the deck to do, but you avoided playing the strongest possible things to achieve some kind of goal, right? You may have a couple tutors in there, but you're not running any game changers. You're not running the last mass land denial. You're not chaining extra turns. You're not playing any kind of infinite combos. So the best example that I have in my own collection for this is this new Karlach deck
Yup.
that I built, where it's basically just I want to take a bunch of extra turns to punch with Karlach, but no infinite combos, no crazy tutors. It's just some ramp, get the Karlach down with Path to the Giants, or Raised by Giants, whatever the thing is, and then swing for the game. So that's what that's. So a card like Misha's Workshop, clearly not going to be seen in any of those. It's too good. And also ridiculously expensive. What the hell's it going for these days? I almost don't even want to look and see how much it's going for.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, just a simple 35K or $3,500.
Yeah. No,
So
it's,
yeah,
it's
it's just a little over $3,000 for a land that taps for 3 mana to only cast artifacts.
yeah. You're
So
probably not gonna be seeing that anywhere but the cEDH level.
yeah, unless you go to like some crazy big event with a whole slew of people that fly all over the place to go to these big tournaments and events in like Chicago and all these other places. If you go to your local game store, you're likely not going to see a Mishra's Workshop. And
No.
if you do, some guy got really lucky and found it in like his old man's, collection from 2 decades ago.
Or they're the shop owner
Right, and
and
it's
they've
like
been
their prized
playing for
possession.
30 plus years.
Yeah, exactly.
But so
So
with that, that's all the stuff that
that,
was added.
yep,
They did remove Trinisphere and
yep.
Trouble in
Transfers no longer there.
Pairs. They
Which
are
makes sense.
both on the screen right now. We're not going to talk too much about them because we talked about them when we were talking about the Game Changer list originally.
Yep.
So, last but not least, what did they change about the brackets? Let's dive into this.
Yeah. So on top of like I was just mentioning with the trying to get away from precons. I think the biggest thing is precons, right? They want to divert away from precons being the foundation or the baseline, right? Given the whole Seaborn Muse debacle.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
From what we're seeing here, they did add a sort of like we put in the spectrum the bracket
yeah,
up.
it's on the screen
Okay,
right
we
now.
got
The
the
newest
okay,
one. Socially
sweet. So you can see on
focused
the bottom
decks on the
there.
bottom.
Yep,
Meta focus on the right.
yep. So it's a nice kind of way that it seems their philosophy is changing to be geared towards, the higher brackets are really just focused on the meta. They're focused on always trying to win the game at any cost.
Yep.
It's like that's their like, yeah, we all want to win the game. It's a card game. We're all, yeah, the goal is to win. But you can do a little bit more with it, which is kind of what I love about this game in its entirety is that you can be social with it, you can have fun with it, you can do flashy cool things with different effects and play fun thematic things, with different archetypes and stuff like that to do kind of just unique janky stuff. Which is why I've been focusing more on brackets like 1 and 2 essentially for my new builds. I'm not trying to build anything really above a 2 in the coming months and years.
I mean, for me personally, I'll always have a few decks that are going to be in 3 and 4.
Yeah, I've got at least 3 that are in the 4 tier right now.
Yeah, but
And I don't
realistically,
plan to go any higher.
like, as you guys can see behind me, I got my wall of decks. I'm still in the process of building them all out. And that's just one portion of it. But I'm going to now be taking those and making those all a level 2 deck.
Yep.
There's no point in going anything above a 2 because those decks are going to be for if people come over and we want to play a quick game. Okay, choose a deck from the wall. They all play well against each other. They all do good. And this whole bracket system makes it so much freaking easier now to build it so they're all can play against each other. I remember when I first started this project, my biggest struggle was okay, how the hell do I make some of these monocolor decks just as powerful as these multicolor ones? Well,
Yep.
this is my answer. Obviously, intent is the biggest thing with this bracket.
I would say so. With each of these, yeah, the intent of what you're going for is definitely the key thing. Like as you go up from 1 to 2 to 3 to like as you go up in the tiers, you can see they're kind of changing in what the actual focus and intent of the deck build itself is, right? So you can see 1 is just like a theme, like, oh, everybody wears a hat, or oh, all the stuff is like they're pirate ships, or everything has like a weird wacky thing in it, and you're just trying to showcase a fun cool idea and it like or experience as it says, right? And you don't really value winning as much as you do just the fun experience of playing some cool kind of janky style stuff, which is always fun. I think everybody should have at least 1 to 2 of these in their collection just to have to pull out, just to be really fun and wild and have a good time with.
Yeah. I mean,
You like, and as we see, right, it goes further up, right?
I
As
think the
like two.
yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
I think the biggest thing here is from what Gavin was talking about in his article that he wrote up about it is this is just a starting point, this bracket system.
Right.
Because and he even mentioned it in here, as have other content creators that I've listened to. There is no doubt in my mind that you and I and any of these other guys that have been playing for years, we can take a deck within the constraints of a bracket 2 and make it be able to compete against a bracket 4. No doubt in
Well,
my
is it
mind.
really a bracket 2 then at that point, though?
Well, and that's what
Is
he was
it-
saying, is you got to go intent. And
Right.
you might not have any game changers or anything like that in your deck, and technically it's bracket 2, but is it really? Like that's
Right.
kind of what he was getting at, I thought, in the article here. And it's one of those
Correct. He
things.
does mention like what does a few tutors mean?
Yeah,
Because few is usually, a few is like three or more, typically, right? Like we see a few and we usually think, at least for most people in the general public, they usually see like a few as like, okay, it's at least three, right? So if we're looking at bracket two and you're saying they've got at least three tutors in there, that could be a pretty strong deck with three tutors, that they can get their game plans out pretty quickly. So I agree, like should there be a 3.5, a 2.5, some kind of exhibition thing?
yeah, like
Like
because
you state here.
in his article in his section under intent of play, and he's reading intent is the most important part of this bracket system, and that these are guidelines. And he even said, he's like, I can easily build a deck that tactically meets all the rules of core, but plays at power level of optimize. These tools are just guidelines, are directions and guidelines. And he did say, he's like, you can always bracket decks up, meaning you can note that your deck meets the description of a bracket 2 deck, but plays like a bracket 3. And
Yep.
one example that he made was, if you make a fully tricked out goblin deck that uses no game changers, it's probably not a core deck, despite technically meeting the deck building rules.
Yep.
And that's why you bracket up. It's all about
I'm
intent.
glad he listened to the feedback of this one, because there were times that before they updated the game changer list, there were decks that I was adding into Architect that I knew clearly were higher
Oh yeah,
than what the system was like saying they were. Like I think it told me that Liliana deck that has Necropotence and the 2-card combo and stuff, it was saying it was like a 3 or something, because yeah, it has a 2-card combo, but they're like, oh, it's kind of a late game thing, right? You have to wait a while. I'm like, no, I can pull that bitch off real quick, turn 4 even if I'm lucky.
exactly.
So like that's a quick combo I can pull off. That's a 4 right there, baby. So, but
Yeah,
it marked it as this. So that's definitely, I'm glad they're addressing that. I'm glad they've listened to all the feedback that we've put out and that other content creators and stuff that we're trying to, assist in and give back to that and tell them what it's actually doing. And the feedback has been positive, I would say. I'm sure there's been some kind of naysayers and some, negative people that are like, oh, well, it's just too trying to complicate things and they're trying to take over and trying to dictate what we can and can't play. And I don't want to have these. Like there are some people I've heard and seen of like, well, I shouldn't have to have these conversations. I just play whatever I want to play, and they should just deal with it and get on my level. Being like the power gamer of like, well, I shouldn't have to talk to you about my deck. I shouldn't tell you what my deck does. Like
that's
that's
if
so asinine, right? Like take that to the meta. Take that to the bracket 5. It's like, hi, nice to meet you. You're clearly a bracket 5 player. Go over there.
like that
Your table's
mindset is
yeah,
what draws people away from the game.
it's terrible.
And
Like, don't be that guy.
like, if I was learning how to play the game like today, and I didn't have a play group of my own, and I was going to a local game store to play every week, and I came across that guy, one, am I really going to want to go back and keep playing with that guy? No.
Probably not.
And I might just end up saying, you know what, fuck it, this game's not for me. Everyone's a sweaty diehard and not even give the game a chance. I think this bracket system, I was against it at first. I thought it was annoying. I thought Wizards was going to ruin Commander. And I really did. Because Commander was made by the fans for the fans. But
Absolutely.
I think what they're doing
They're
is a
listening.
good
They're
thing.
listening to the feedback.
Yes. At the end of the day, they're listening to us. They are making the necessary changes. I'm glad that they're not making it like standard where they're changing shit every few months.
Right. Yeah, that's the good thing, is that they're taking their time to do things, but it also means that like it's not like they're sitting idly either, right? Like they're not just sitting around not making any changes. They're not looking to make any changes.
They're probably
Like, 'cause
sitting,
clearly
watching,
they're clearly
and
listening
to
and
us.
watching. Yeah.
I mean, even on the document, it still says this is a beta.
Yep.
Like, this is not finalized. And realistically, it probably won't be finalized for another 2 years.
I'd be amazed if it ever truly is like finalized, because I could see something like this just growing as the game grows, as the community grows, as the philosophy of it and the discussions of it grow and change, our perceptions of it might change too.
Like, I think the
So
only thing that will be finalized is the bracket definitions.
yeah,
The
I
game
could see that
changers,
being yeah.
yeah, the game changers are always going to be updating. The ban cards are always going to be unbanning and banning, depending on new cards that are coming out.
Yeah,
But
power creep and all that being a thing.
I could definitely see them finalizing the bracket, but making it known we can update this. Because even in as little as 3 years from now, we might be seeing all these precons. They might just decide, you know what? We're going to make all these precons upgraded level. Just to help out some of these newer players get into the game. Do I want to see that? Not really. But I can... It's always a possibility.
Absolutely, and it seems like most of the feedback from it has been positive. Like when they went to Chicago, right there, Magic Con that they had out there not too long ago, where they were really testing this thing out. He states that 87% of it, all of their games that they had were positive as hell, right? Like they all came back and it helped their games be better, helped it have a more positive environment, which is incredible. So I see this as a huge win, right? I think it's good. I think the unbans were good. I understand why they won't adjust the ban list any further. That's one thing he mentioned in that other article is that going forward, they're not going to really touch the ban list much, but they are going to be on the lookout to make sure we don't have any more Nadu incidences. Because they did implement something like that, like a Nadu contingency, where it's like they're going to be trying to avoid things like Nadu. I know a lot of people mentioned Lutri as well. That little otter thing that was the companion that was banned before it was even printed.
Yeah, that was...
that thing got banned before the set even released.
Yeah.
Which 100% makes sense. So they're going to be trying to, implement ways to avoid things like that happening again, which is good. It means they're really trying to get feedback and really listen to the community and see what the games are.
And
I like that.
The one thing that I do like that Gavin said in his summary is they want to set this up so they're quarterly check-ins. Whether that means they update anything or change anything is yet to be seen. But he's looking to make sure he stays in contact with all the fans of the game and get their opinions. And I guarantee they're not just sitting around twiddling their thumbs and have their ideas.
No, they're active.
They're probably talking to the major content creators that are playing thousands of games a week as opposed to us that we might get 1 to 2 in a week. So
yeah, real life work is a bitch.
Like, I doubt
real life work.
Yeah,
all good.
They don't really care as much about our opinion. They're looking at guys like Command Zone, Commander at Home, these guys that are doing this for a living. But with that,
all good.
This is going to be the last we're talking about the brackets until they come out with their next quarterly check-in. And according to Gavin, that's going to be June or July that they're going to do another quarterly check-in here. So,
yeah, please leave any comments, questions. I don't know, give us your guys' takes. What do you think?
Yeah,
of these things? Think they're good, bad? Think they need to update it further? Maybe make some other changes?
Like, what do you guys think need to be on the game changers list? Like, I know everybody has their own opinion on the cards that they hate playing 100%. Against. But with that,
absolutely.
As always, yes, as always, I am Kava.
This is Jack.
And we will see you guys all later. Take care, everyone.